Welcome, everybody, to
Hello.
another fun-filled episode. Tonight, our very lovely, all gussied up Spider is he's going to be playing the role of you got to get the dust off your shoulders for them haters or whatever. I don't know, something off your shoulder.
I don't know.
Anyways, yes, episode 333, 333. Add those together, it's
Ooh,
9 for our Mr. Numbers over there. That's his new name.
numerology.
Yes,
Mr.
9 is my
Numbers.
number, so it had to be my episode.
That's
Yep.
because he's German.
No,
9.
Mm.
I don't think they say that in Scottish.
Because
9.
you're not Scottish, you're really German. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Gentlemen, what do we have? Do we have anything going on or anything afoot? Anything new that's brand spanking?
I don't have the liberty to speak about it yet, but I do want to get people hyped that we do have an upcoming new partnership. It's going to show up after we come back from our season break. So that's going to be in September. Beginning of September, we're going to have a brand new affiliate to add to our other ones. It's going to be a big one. This is a big deal. It's somebody else who's very successful in their field, and they've done really well. And I'm looking forward to introducing them to everybody and to combining our forces on everything we got going on in the universe.
The forces.
Nice.
Steven, what do you how's the college front?
I actually have my orientation on Tuesday the 5th.
Okay.
So that is my next big task.
Excellent. Anything else, gentlemen? If not, Spider, go ahead and get right into it.
If you don't mind real quick,
I do
By
not
all
mind.
means.
Go ahead.
I have been working on building a website that I am calling an archive of knowledge. It's related, basically it's an ARG centered around a book I've been writing. And it's presented, in fiction and ARG, but still a lot of it is very interesting knowledge. And I'm trying to build an archive. And if anyone would like to help, build the archive with us, it is called the enlightenedones.net. And I would really appreciate any help. And if not, no pressure. That's fine. Just wanted to let everyone know that I've been working on that.
There you go. It's big news for everybody. Check it out. I have gone through the process. I've been
Yes,
initiated.
Spider is one
And
of
I
our
have also lodged my complaints.
Uh-oh.
Because what else would I do? But
Yeah, he said it's a little too secret society-ish.
I said some things about it, and you can bet it. But anyway, that's something else. And by all means, support our good co-host friend Steven, no longer the intern, but we can call him the intern if we want.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, we probably won't see Spider next week because he did lodge complaints, and
Oh no.
at the
They're gonna be
enforcer
after me.
department, we don't care for complaints.
They're gonna be after me.
So good luck. God bless.
All right. Now, this episode was going to go one way, and then it was going to go another way, and it's now going to go a third way. And you won't know
Nice.
any of that because you don't know what my research was, but I'm telling you, that's the way it's going to go. I'm a little scattered also. I had some things happen this week that kind of derailed me, and I didn't get everything as polished as I want. So if I seem a little freewheeling tonight more than usual, I'll do my best to stick to the topic and get everybody to weigh in on everything. But first and foremost, does evil exist in the world? And is it brought here by otherworldly beings? And when they bring it here, do they stay where they arrive? Do the locations that they've landed at become cursed, unholy, despoiled? What do you think? I'm going to leave that broad question out there first, just to get a general sense of where we're going. Steven, what do you think?
I think it depends on like their energies. Like Rob over here, a lot of times he has discussed his belief that ghosts are not actual dead people, but they are the energies that they have left behind. And I think it's very similar to that. And when there are a lot of different energies or very strong energies, they can sometimes affect places residually. And I think it's, less about, sometimes it can be spiritual entities, but not every single time. And I think sometimes it might be spiritual entities of, some sort, one way or another, however you want to interpret that. Or sometimes if it's not quite as strong and just more like a bad feeling, I believe that could also be residual energies affecting different places.
All right. Robert Solomon, same question.
I think God created it. I don't think anything else about it. I just think God created both good and evil. And it's our job to, as people, to remove that evil where it sits. And even if there is an entity that brings that kind of confusion, it would be our job to take care of the said entity.
Exorcisms.
Now, this episode might run a little bit long because there's going to be a couple spots where we're going to get into some good discussion, I think, because I'm going to pose some philosophical questions.
Ooh, my favorite.
As we go
Philosophical.
along. But the purpose of the discussion tonight is, can regions of the earth become infested or become soaked in dark energy of some kind, or inhabited by beings who are indescribably evil, not just malicious in a capricious way, but definitely he did get a new fade. I saw that. In the chat room commenting on your fade. So the first one we're going to talk about, because we're going to go in a couple spots, we're going to talk about a few places that I think are dubious, that I'm not fully convinced are actually evil places, despite what was maybe done at them. And then we're going to cover some pretty serious ones at the end. Really, and there's going to be a bit of a trigger warning at that, because some people don't like to talk about those things. But the first one is the Hellfire Caves. The Hellfire Caves, also known as the West Wycombe Caves, in the village of West Wycombe in Buckinghamshire, southeast England. This was the home of the Hellfire Club. I'm sure some people have heard about that before. The Hellfire Club was, in this instance, it was put together by a man named Francis Dashwood, the 11th Baron Le Despencer, and he founded not only the Hellfire Club of this era, but also something called the Society of Dilettanti, which is more of a high society, schmooze with your buddies kind of thing. And he excavated these caves for the purpose of them holding rituals, supposedly in favor of Bacchus and Venus and various other minor entities. Supposedly they had public sacrifices, which were not of people, but were of animals, which were then put as a feast later. And they had various people that would visit from the 18th century who were important politically and socially. Pardon me. And these members would have been William Hogarth, John Wilkes, Thomas Potter, and John Montague, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, which sounds like a joke, but it is not.
Oh, I've heard of that.
And while not a member, Benjamin Franklin was a close friend of Dashwood, and he visited the caves on more than one occasion. Now, these days, the caves are open for tourists. You can walk through, you can look at everything, you can see things. People claim that they are haunted, that they're cursed. They say that the caves are haunted by Suki, a young maid who was accidentally killed by people playing a practical joke on her. And others claim that the ghost of Paul Whitehead, the former steward, has been seen in the caves. Now, considering the goals of these people, supposedly a lot of their rituals were specifically meant to mock the Catholic Church, which is a precursor to what Anton LaVey did in modern Satanism. Does that make the location an evil place? Did it actually invite some kind of evil there? Did something move in to inhabit it? Is it possible? I'm not entirely certain, especially if so many people visit it all the time. And you don't hear stories of people going to the Hellfire Caves and, oh, yeah, now suddenly I'm cursed and I've got plagues. And it's not like when you go see the doll exhibits like Robert the Doll and Annabelle and bad things happen. So this is an example of a lot of places where this kind of thing happened. This is one of many where people supposedly had secret rituals that were partially, people were aware in the town that they were going on, and they considered them bad form. They considered, oh, there's evil things that go on in the hills there. But are they really something evil and demonic? I have my doubts, but what do you think, Robert Solomon?
To be quite fair, I think that if you play with something, you're going to get the repercussions. You know, for instance, if I'm playing with fire, if at some point I'm going to get burned. Very similar circumstances. I mean, you're also going to, if you're invoking something even playfully, you're still invoking it. Doesn't matter if you're doing it as a rib or a joke, if you're doing it as an anti-religious movement, because entities will cling to that. They cling to that sort of thing. These spirits that roam restlessly, or these demons, or however you want to put it, cling to anything that is not um, godly. Now, is that to say that the Catholic Church was godly during some of these times? Of course it isn't, because as we have seen in history, the Catholic Church has not been godly, but the church as a whole hasn't been godly. So, it's mocking that, right? But a lot of times with your poorer folk, their hearts are in the right place when it comes to religion. They go to church, they try to do the best they can with what they have. Does that mean the church hierarchy aren't liable for certain things? That's up for discussion. But to me, if you're over here doing XYZ to mock ABC, at some point something slides in, whether that be a demon, whether that be spirits, whatever, what have you, and who knows the exact rituals unless we have a dedicated transcript of said rituals. We do not know what rituals they were practicing. So we don't know if they were invoking other spirits, other gods, Canaanite entities, so on and so forth. So for me, I just think that, if you're going to stand against something, rituals, I don't think, are the way to do it, because you're just trying to combat one with the other. And so I always think that you're going to get burned at that point.
Now, right before I go to ask Steven, I just want to make a quick point because I almost forgot that part of the framework for the club was an early form of Thelema, which is what was the basis for Aleister Crowley's work later. And that does justify what James mentioned in the chat, that a lot of these people were into sexual magic and having orgies and things of that nature. That is mentioned as supposedly having happened in the Hellfire Club. Again, proof is scant, but it is a good comment there, James, and I didn't want to neglect mentioning that. Stephen, what do you think? Do you think the caves are evil? Do you think something is inhabiting them now? What's your take?
I don't really know much about them, so I mean, they could be evil. And I was looking up some cursed places, and a lot of times, from what I've looked up, it seems like a lot of places that are classified as cursed or unholy are not that way initially, and they get that way because of a bad reputation, such as, things like mass sacrifice or, torture or things like that. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's all a placebo effect and people just think that these are cursed places because of all the bad history associated with them, or if they're actually cursed places and that's why these bad things happen there. And that's kind of like where I'm at mentally in my own mind. Like, I can't make up my mind one way or the other.
And that's potentially as well. Like
good example from James, Moundsville.
Yep. When I was looking up the various locations for this, I found a lot of places that were they had paranormal activity, but I didn't consider them really potentially evil or cursed in some fashion. I felt like, yeah, bad things happened there, but are they really a bad place?
Yeah.
So, a lot of these early ones I'm going to talk about are dubious. The last two that we get into that are the serious ones, those are the trigger warning ones. Those are quite a bit different. And we'll discuss that pretty deeply, I think, once we get there. The second location I want to talk about is Poveglia. It's a small island located between Venus and Lido in the Venetian Lagoon. of northern Italy. And there's a small canal that divides the island into two separate parts. For more than 100 years, beginning in 1776, which is interesting for the year, for what else happened that year, the island was used as a quarantine station for those suffering the plague and other diseases, and later as a mental hospital. The mental hospital closed in 1968, and the island has been vacant ever since. Now, when I say that they used it as a quarantine station, they didn't send people there to treat them. They found out you had plague, and they sent you there. And that was it. You were there to live with everybody else who had plague, live or die, recover or not. That's where they sent you. So there was a lot of suffering, a lot of just bad things because the people didn't know what to do. It doesn't say that there was a lot of violence between them, but considering just how awful of a disease the plague was, it cannot have been a great time for people there. Add to the fact that you drop a mental hospital on it. We know in various other talks we've had that mental institutions across the world were not gentle in that time frame.
And we have evidence to support that.
They were not, they didn't see it necessarily as something to be cured. They saw it as, you have this, we're either going to end it for you or you're going to end with it. And that's how it is. And then the people will be safe from you because you're a danger. So that adds to potentially the level of just suffering and anguish that could have accumulated on the island. And the fact that it's been vacant and they don't allow people to live there now since then, and it's not a touristy place, is interesting. However, because money makes the world go round, it is frequently featured on various paranormal TV shows. So there's us, there's all kinds of people. So it's been visited, I'm sure, by investigators, and I'm sure some people have pulled some pretty awesome stuff that scares the crap out of them. But is it really an evil place? Did these things cause it to become an evil place? Stephen, what do you think?
I think it's like I said earlier, and I think these things probably caused it to become an evil place after they occurred.
Robert Solomon, what do you think?
I think anytime you have suffering on a mass scale, it creates an energy that sits in the land, sits in the soil. Energy's attached to things, you know. As a person who believes in God and the like, I still think that there's certain energies and emotions and feelings that are let out upon a person's passing. And I think that sits. I don't think it's the person. I don't think it's that. I just think it's that energy. And then I think spirits and entities cling to that energy because they're trying to get back to something. You know, if we look at it from a point of, spirits are always trying to get back to their original design, and they'll go through steps to get to original design, which they can't. We see that pattern of, you know, like, I don't know if you're going to bring this one up, but Auschwitz or Treblinka or any place that has a suffering on a grand scale. I think, you know, those places a little more so, obviously, but I think any place you just leave people to die in, you know, Pavella is crazy because Zach Baggins and them, they went to Pavella Island, and, you know, it was a big deal. They're like, they're not coming back to get us on the boat till tomorrow. We'll be here stuck all day. Obviously, they probably weren't stuck all day. If they had to, they could have radioed back. Having watched it, saw the landscape, saw the area, it just isn't a place that leave the place alone, to be quite honest. Leave that energy sit. Over time, that energy will dissipate, or it'll move on to wherever the energy is supposed to go after that. But I think the longer people try to stir things up and go in and play with things they shouldn't, you're going to keep that alive. You know, because this is how I have to look at it. Pardon me. Say in 100 years from now, right? That people say our civilization dies off, right? and a new civilization spawns. And they go and they find this place. And let's say there's just no records, it's just ruins. If they don't know the history of that place, there would be no reason for them to think that there's something scary there. It would have to be something that's passed down in folklore and legends and tales to make it that. But if we're talking introducing a whole new group of people into that area, I don't think it holds the same weight. And then it just looks like an abandoned place. Like you drive by abandoned stores that have closed. Do you think those are haunted? Do you think those have malicious energies? I mean, obviously, customers and retail is a crazy thing, but on a wide scale like that, like when Sears closed, Sears never felt haunted to me, not once. And then when it closed, it just closed. So that's the kind of thing we have to think of in that regard. That's how I think it'll be treated. I think it's only there as long as we give it the power to be there. But once that power and knowledge is stripped, then what? Then what is it? It's just it's a place. That's all it is. It's an abandoned ruin. That's it. That's all it is.
Perfect way to explain it.
Now, a quick point for James. The Hellfire Caves that I'm using for this example were actually carved out by the man who founded the Hellfire Club. He hired people from the village who were impoverished farmers or various people who were down on their luck to carve out the caves for him to give them work, which was a good, it paid them. It gave them a living.
Yeah.
So those caves are fresh at that point. They were not previously used for different things. But it's a good question. It was a great question to ask, because other places in the world, people have moved into old caves and used them for different things. And who knows what happened before they moved in. So
once again, let's take into places like cities that have been completely destroyed, and then they build on top of that. Why? Well, maybe there's a water source nearby. So it's intelligent to build near a water source, so you don't have to worry about irrigating your water. Also, what minerals, how are the crops going to do? I think that sort of thing too. And then we just build on top. So it's like, at one point, these caves might have been used for this, but then now they're being used for this. And I think too, if people go into these caves, given the knowledge that they have of what went on there, people are going to say it's haunted because they have the pre-knowledge walking into those caves, like, oh, there was spookiness happening. Take people that have no idea of this place, drop them in, and let's see how they feel. But that'd probably be a hard thing to do because there's probably pamphlets and touristy things.
Yeah,
and
it's been open to tourism since 1951, according to the article.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, the minute you said Benjamin Franklin, because while not a member, he was a part of. I would say he was part of the rituals. I mean. But that's conspiracy theory central.
A lot of those guys were Masons and things too.
Yeah,
George Washington, all that kind of stuff. So, it's not out of character.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Modern politicians are no different most of the time.
There's probably another Hellfire Club somewhere else. So, we just don't know about it. That's all.
The next location I'm going to talk about is Huska Castle. I don't know if I'm saying that right because I don't speak Czechoslovakian, but Huska Castle. Now,
I did this.
If you know about this,
I do know about this.
Excellent example. This might be borderline. This might be interesting.
Yeah.
It's an early Gothic castle in the municipality of Blatci in the Liberec region of the Czech Republic. I don't know if I'm saying any of that right, but I'm going to do my best. And it lies about 47 kilometers north of Prague. It's one of the best preserved castles of the period, which is maybe for a good reason. Some notable features of the castle include a predominantly Gothic chapel, a green chamber with late Gothic paintings, and a knight's drawing room. Now, folklore considers this castle to cover one of the gateways to hell, and that it was specifically built to prevent demons from reaching the rest of the world. I'm going to go into that. According to one source, there are multiple myths about this cult, the supposed occult involvements there. Other people state that the Nazis went there to harness the powers of hell for their experiments, and I believe that was depicted in one of the Wolfenstein games, one of the older ones, probably from the mid console period before the modern ones. Um, and they supposedly tourists may visit the chapel and they see fading frescoes and murals, including pictures of demon-like figures and animal beings. Now, the castle, most specifically the chapel section, was constructed over a large hole in the ground that was claimed to be a gateway to hell. They said it was allegedly so deep that no one could see the bottom of it. Claims were that animal-human hybrids were reported to have crawled out of it, and dark-winged otherworldly creatures flew in its vicinity. And legend has it that when construction began in the castle, all of the prisoners that were sentenced to death were offered a pardon if they consented to be lowered by rope into the hole and report back on what they saw. When the first person was lowered, he began screaming after a few seconds, and when pulled back to the surface, he looked as if he had aged 30 years. He had grown wrinkles, and his hair had turned white. Now, that's interesting because you don't often find direct depictions of, well, we built this here because something definitely is going on here. A lot of times you'll get stories of, well, we built this here because people were afraid of that something might come out of it, or that they had give us bad feeling, or that the vapors out of here were evil, and things of that nature. There are places in Greece that are entrances to the underworld because they have sulfuric gases and things, so it smelled like the underworld from what people assumed. And certain people might go down there and get visions if they were able to survive. That's part of the oracle legends. But there's no concrete evidence of anything being captured from that. They don't have any bodies, at least to our knowledge. They don't have anything that they can show off and say, this is definitely evil from the hole. We've been down there. So it's interesting, and it has a lot of history and lore behind it, but is it really an evil place? Or is it just a hole in the ground that people were afraid of? Robert, what do you think?
Oh man, this is a good one too because I've studied this one. There's a gang load of theories as to like it's a whole cult, it's a whole thing. Yeah, I've deep dived at 2 a.m. to this. My personal thing is hell isn't on the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Hell is a different dimension. I mean, I'm not a personal believer in hell, but we could talk about that anytime off this. But if hell were to be real, it wouldn't be in the same dimension as Earth. You wouldn't have the two. You wouldn't fall down a hole and boom. No, what you're falling down into is you're going to get closer and closer to the core of the Earth, which is hot. Makes sense, right? The entities and things that come out of there could very well be from a time period that we don't know about. It's not like we had cameras and we had all the media over this whole, and different regions and different animals. And I've often discussed this, that I believe that there are two time periods. And I've said this before. I believe there is the industrialization period, and I believe there's the pre-industrialization period. And I believe the pre-industrialization period is when you had some of the more different entities and beings that existed, that were out there floating around, spirits, maybe fallen ones, Nephilim, this sort of thing that existed. And that once we started pumping different chemicals into the air, it sort of moved these things to the farthest fringes, or as the American Gods author Neil Gaiman would put it, more so that less believing made them less real, which is another theory that people hold. I, on the other hand, hold these things are very much real. We've just kind of pushed them to the fringes. To build a castle over a hole, all right, that's pretty crazy because at any time the castle could fall into the hole, and then what are you left with? Now, we have to remember, too, during these kind of time periods, religious fervency was at an all-time high. People were very just, it's a demon, it's a demon, it's a demon.
Mhm.
They don't want to be like, okay, there's a gaping hole here, stuff's coming out of it. We probably should find a way to seal this thing up. Let's lower our prisoners down. Now, unless they have a picture, we don't know if that's the case. They're just saying that, but we have to understand something too. People love to embellish. They will embellish the story. Unless somebody really saw this guy or had a picture of him, we can't say that at all. Now, here's what I think happened. You lowered me into a giant hole. At some point when I'm enshrouded in total darkness, to a point where you can see in the dark, if that makes sense, but it's still very much pitch black. It's frightening. And human beings have an innate fear of the darkness. It's something we've had for a long time. It's a very primal fear. So being lowered into a pit with nothing but darkness, at some point you're going to be like, I think I'm going crazy, because I don't think it says how long they left him there or how far they went down. Once there's no more light, your brain will play tricks on you to make up for your lack of being able to see. And on the if we want to get a little bit more cryptid about it, shouts out to Cryptid Strength for the shirt. Let me know if you want to get some. We have to understand that there might be things down there that we've never seen. Things that we would look at and think that are unholy abominations. But once again, your eyes are in the dark, right? As far as things flying over the hole, okay, that makes sense. They're giant bats or they're large bats. We're talking, this is like damn near Dracula territory, right? So a lot of the folklore and stuff is going to happen. And then you have a big hole. So you already have the connotations going. What you see in the sky is probably going to be more of your religious fervency, much like the Annalise Michael case, right? That's what I think. Because once again, I don't, there's no such thing as portals to heck, as I would say. It just doesn't, it's not scientifically logic. And while I am a believer in God, I do believe we have to get the common sense out in the open. You know, as much as I love a good, a good science romp or a good cryptid or a good this, that, and the third, I have to look at things from a perspective when given the evidence to look at it as such. Giant hole in the ground, strike one. People are already like, oh, there's a giant hole in the ground. What are we going to do? Somebody call Shivani. And of course, things are going to be around it. It's a giant hole. Like, you're lucky if you don't see me looking, trying to throw stuff down. I mean, come on. Every one of us here would throw stuff down it, spit down it, right? But if we are of a religious mindset and an orthodox mindset at that, right? We're going to look at that as, oh no, that's the portal to heck. Because we don't, in our brains, we don't understand that it's just a giant hole. It's just a giant hole. There's giant holes all over the place. So for me, now if there was rituals done there over the hole, I guess maybe you could have some entities coming up out the hole, but it just doesn't make sense in terms of, because I remember this, I pulled up a picture of it. It's literally like in the mountains, more or less. Not in the mountains, but like, that terrain.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what are the demons doing? Are they going down into the village below? There's not really a village below. So it's little things that you have to piece together. I think it's a fascinating thing. And I've read the reports. I've read, there was a girl that went on YouTube. I forget her name, Amy something. And she travels around to like these kinds of places. And it was so cool because I got to see the inside of it. I got to see what it looked like. But once again, to me, it's just a very gothic structure. And if we put all the things together about, and that's facts, James, that's 100% facts. If we put it all together, right, the gothic sense, right, the legends, the people put down into the pit, then yes, to us, it's going to have, I don't want to say evil. I want to say more of maybe a uh, unearthly feeling, right? But I don't think it's evil. No, like unless something crazy evil happened there. Did anybody ever get thrown in the pit? Do you know of?
Not according to the history that I've found. It actually, after it was built, it passed through a series of it was at various times owned by different people in the aristocracy for no particular reason, and they didn't even live there. They actually left it unoccupied. So it's for a castle that's supposed to be built over a hole that's protecting the gates to hell. You would think somebody would want to be there all the time with soldiers and things, but they didn't. They just kind of, oh, I have it now. Well, what do I do with it? I don't want to live there because it's out in the middle of nowhere. Let me wait until the next sucker comes along. Now you can have it. Now you can have it. So it's interesting to follow the ownership afterwards.
And if you think about it, it'd be a great place to put different things. If you don't want somebody going to a place, tell them there's a portal to hell. Yeah, you're going to get visitors that come in, but they're only really going to go to look at the hole, right? They're not going to start snooping around. And most people in that area, being the Orthodox religion that they are, they're not going to go there. So why not stash your goods there, or stash some ancient loot that you found, and somebody will come and get it later? Because if anybody goes to that castle, oh my goodness, he's going to the castle of the devil. You're not gonna go follow him and try to talk to him. You're just gonna be like, I'm not going into that castle of the devil. And then when they leave, it's just more conspiracy. It's more gossip, more this, more that. So you could technically stash a lot of stuff that maybe you don't want certain people of your family to see, which would make perfect sense. And if that's what I would use it for, I would use it as a place where I would store my things that I didn't want people knowing about, And if somebody got too close, hey, come up, whoop. That's it. I think it's just it's honestly another Oak Island, to be fair. I think if we went there right now, I think there's probably an energy from the rituals and things once again. But I think if we just went there and looked at the hole, I think we'd probably just throw a couple things down it and then call it a day. I don't think we would be spook duked, if you want my honest opinion. I just think it would be a field trip, because once again, the place doesn't have the suffering of something like, say, Povella Island, which did, right? I could see energy there. Here, it's just it's a hole. It's a hole. We do that kind of stuff here in the United States. Is it haunted? No. Hey, come here. Come on down to Bradshaw County. We got a giant hole. You want to throw some stuff in? That's fine. We do it all the time. We do that here in the States. And we don't say it's a portal to hell. We just throw mufflers and tires and things like that down there so that we don't have to throw them away because the trash won't take them. So, no, I don't. I personally don't think it's evil. I think you get that feeling because of what you know about the place, and it looks foreboding. Like, I'm looking at it, it looks very foreboding.
Yeah, I mean, it does
like the
look
forebodingness. I like it.
It's an excellent example of a Gothic construction during that time period, and they did look imposing.
Yes, they were supposed to.
It does look like that there could be something hidden in there, like an old Dracula movie kind of thing. It looks like, oh my goodness. So the effect is there. It's just whether or not the reality is there.
I'll say this. If you two have never watched it, there's a movie. There's a book and a movie. I've read the book. The book is fantastic. The movie's nowhere near as good, obviously. It's by F. Paul Wilson. It's called The Keep. It's probably one of the greatest horror books I've ever read in my life. And this place looks like that. So, like, when they made the movie and Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack for the movie, it's crazy. The movie is just like, whoo. But the book is fantastic. The Keep. But to close it all out without me rambling any further, it just looks imposing. It's a Gothic structure from a different time, and it just looks like a prison in a roundabout way. So it's a little imposing. Does that mean when I get in there that I'm going to be scared? Yes, like a baby, because it'll just be me in a hole, and the hole talks. And don't let the hole talk to you. No. In all fairness, though, and to just end it like this, I think that it's a beautiful location, but I think, you know, they probably had like we do road crews. They had somebody go build a castle over a hole so the kids didn't fall in it.
Steven, what do you think? Do you think it was attempting to cover up some kind of entrance to an evil realm, or is it just a building over a hole?
Now, I want to specify what James mentioned in the chat here, Mel's Hole. I've been thinking a lot about that. It reminds me a lot of Mel's Hole. And not to get too deep into Mel's Hole here, we're not trying to do that. That's his hole. But to specify, they did say that that was also a portal to hell, and they reported that they heard, screams of the damned, in the hole or whatever. But later on, it came out to prove that that was just the media trying to, hype things up, and it was proven false. So, but there was a mass, media frenzy around it, and I don't know what this had to do with anything, but it was proven that the government did go to the Mel's Hole and, put up a barrier around it and, investigate it. So that was actually proven true. So it's a little kind of iffy. But at the end of the day, I think it's really just goes back to human nature. You remember when we were kids, humans are obsessed with holes. One way or the other, we just want to put stuff in the holes. We want to dig holes and put stuff down there. So I think it's just a matter of someone dug a really deep hole and then someone else found it and wanted to put something on top of it. I think that's all it was.
That trend continues into adulthood. Anyway,
Yep.
Sorry, children. Good observations, though, because again, nothing physically of any otherworldly entities is in a museum anywhere. Nothing's been recovered. People saw things, but whether they were there, who knows? We're going to shift to something a little bit different, because this is a question of whether things that we do as people can cause a place to be irredeemably evil and soaked in just pain and suffering basically for eternity. And this is your trigger warning for anybody who doesn't want to hear about the next two locations. Both of them are one of them is mostly in the past. Nothing much happens there anymore. It's there for historical purposes. But for the other, things continue to happen there. So the first, of course, is what Robert alluded to earlier on, which is Auschwitz. And this isn't just a single location. When you say Auschwitz, you're talking about a series of camps. There's the main camp, which is Auschwitz I. There's Birkenau, which is the concentration and extermination camp that had the gas chambers.
Yep.
There's Auschwitz III Monowitz, which is Monowitz, probably German, a labor camp for the chemical conglomerate IG Farben, which was a company that created the chemicals that were sent to the gas chambers.
Still in business, by the way.
Interesting point. Very interesting point. And there's dozens of subcamps. This was used by Nazi Germany, not even in Germany itself. They did this in Poland, which is another interesting point. They didn't want to bring this kind of energy onto their own soil. They kept it to their neighbor because maybe they knew something that we didn't. And it became the major site of what they called the final solution, which was the end of the Jewish race. I can't even begin to list the entirety of the things that happened at these camps, because they go on and they go on and they go on. People were worked to death. They were starved to death. They were sent to death in the chambers. The amount of just abject suffering and destruction of human lives in these places is incalculable. And I have seen a lot of documentaries about where people go to the location because they've raised everything. They've flattened everything after the fact. There's nothing there, but they've fenced off the areas and you can go to them. I think there's monuments at each section that you can, look and reflect on, and maybe a building or two for example purposes only that was built after the fact. They didn't want to keep much of the actual equipment or anything that happened there because it was too much. It's overwhelming. And people have said you go there and it's just an unnatural quiet and just a feeling of just not even a feeling of dread, just a feeling of emptiness. Like something truly awful has happened to here and there's nothing that's going to recover from it. And it's a scar on the planet. And so the question is, because this isn't the only place where we've done this, it's just the most notable example. When we do these things on our own land, on the planet itself, are we creating a place that invites something in such a way that it will never leave, that place is then forever tainted in the future? Robert Solomon, what do you think? It's a tough question.
This is a tough question on a couple fronts, but I think the biggest front is, once again, and I don't do this out of disrespect, but in 1,000 years or 100 years, or not, I would say more 1,000, right? And that place is, the monuments have eroded and this, that, and the third, and people step onto that land. Are they going to feel that same energy, or does it die
with our knowledge?
With us? Does it die with us? I'd be interested. That is one of my biggest things. Like, I'd be interested to see that. Okay. That being said, I think when you do something to the depravity, it's a mass sacrifice. It almost very much resembles, especially towards the end, a mass sacrifice, right? For what? What are you trying to do? Because while he ran from it, Hitler was very much into the occult. He only ran from it later on because it didn't suit his purpose of winning a war. But at the first time, that's what it was. He was into the occult. There's proof of that. There's proof of of him in talks with the Thule Society and the Vril Society, not in those societies, because he doesn't want to be part of the crackpot societies that he would later try to kill. But we have to remember the reason why, because you don't want people to know that you're a goofball. I mean, he's a POS, right? We all know this. And James mentions this here, blood. If we go to the Old Testament, the book of the Jews, the blood is the most important. It's the life.
On the doors, right?
It's the life. Yes, it's all about blood, right? Like, it's the pure thing. You can't eat food from an animal unless you bleed it first. It has to be kosher. The blood cannot be in it when you eat it. Now, me personally, I think that's just an old thing that they had to do to preserve the food so people didn't get sick. Because that's what I think a lot of that Old Testament knowledge is you're a civilization trying to flourish. If you're doing these things, people are going to die. The last thing you can afford is for your small tribe of people to die, because then you have nobody. You're done. Getting back on track here, though, I think that honestly, that place, there's very few places in the world that I would consider to be bad. That place is the top for me, of like, not so much because it isn't how do I put it? It isn't recognized as something where if you go there, they're going to get hurt as some locations people have said they've been scratched and hurt. This is a place of extreme suffering and sorrow. And I think that's different than the evil. I think this is a place of just nothingness. Because what can grow in a place where so much bloodshed happened, so many lives taken, men, women, children, so many lives taken.
It's hard to talk about. It's hard. It's sobering.
There is a energy there that exists, a very wicked one, that would allow that to happen and not bat an eye about it, not have a second thought to not do it, you know? And that energy is what causes that suffering, and that suffering is what causes the land to be scarred or tainted. Could it heal? I think the only way it heals is if it dies with us. You know, if some extinction event happened where we died, but the planet wasn't destroyed, and then maybe later some life comes, or, you know, something happens. God puts new people here. How would they know? Would they know that there was suffering there if there's no markers?
Nope.
If they can't read the language, would they know that there's suffering there?
Just like us in ancient civilizations today.
Yeah, like that's the thing too, and that's a good point you bring this up. If we go to Auschwitz or Treblinka or Dachau or Birkenwald or any of those places, it's still relatively fresh for us. And I say fresh in the grand scheme of history, it is relatively close to us. We were taught it in school. We saw the concentration camp folks. We saw what they look like. We heard the numbers. We saw everything, right? So it's, if we go there, we know that there is death and that there is suffering. But if we would go to, say, somewhere in the Middle East, right, outside of Jerusalem, because that's a very holy city, or outside of, say, the Kaaba, if we went to, say, let me think, one of the fields where Alexander the Great or Darius or somebody had a big battle and killed a bunch of people, would we feel the same?
Not if we didn't know about it.
And it's a little different.
Nanking.
Right. Another place where we would feel that because it's so relatively new. But like I said, if we go to a place where the Phoenicians slaughtered, you know, this other people, would we feel that same energy? No, I don't think we would, because I don't know any Phoenicians. I don't know any Chaldeans. You know what I mean? So I think that's the other way too, is that history goes so far forward that the past is now ancient. And while, yeah, that sucks, you don't have that same time period connection that we do to this stuff.
Relativity.
Because we all know somebody, you know, maybe a great grandfather, or for some of us that are older, a grandfather that served in World War II. It's still relatively fresh for us. But nobody sitting here has a grandfather that served for the Phoenicians. So I think that for its time frame that it has to, almost like radioactivity. You know, radioactivity doesn't die away for hundreds of years sometimes.
But eventually it does.
So I don't know. See, my dad was in World War II. See, it's still fresh for us. That's my long-winded, drawn-out explanation of just simply saying, I think until enough time passes, that place will be a place of sorrow. And I think it will be for a very long time. A very long time. As long as you have people who are of that faith, that religion, it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Good response. Stephen, what are your thoughts? Do you think the place is irredeemable, or do you think eventually it'll be a place that we forget about?
I think eventually, like Rob said, it could one day become a place that we forget about, but there are a few things that are going to happen for that to occur. And one of the main things is our main society that we have today is, and I don't mean this in a rude or disrespectful way, but just the fact of the matter is, the place is going to remain evil and cursed in the general population's mind for hundreds, if not thousands of years, until every single person alive that even heard of a Jewish person is dead and long gone. For so long as we remember that Jewish people existed and suffered so terribly at that, camp, we're going to remember that it is a terrible and cursed place.
Well, and you make a good point too, and I want to address this before we move on. We don't know the people change between those next couple thousand years. Maybe the Jews blend with somebody else and they become another, not species. What am I looking for here?
Race of people, because
Another nationality.
Yes,
like you were saying earlier,
nationality.
you didn't know any Phoenicians personally. You've never even heard of a person living today who claims to be a Phoenician. So why would you have any interest in their history?
It's not the interest. It's why would I have the emotions over
personal connection?
100, of their soldiers dying in a battle that I don't even. We're digging stuff out of the ground about these people.
It's about the personal connection to individual people.
I also think
an idea.
You're right. You have to be able to connect yourself. Now, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has gone to one of these battlefields and wept insanely. I'm not going to discredit people because people do people stuff. But in terms of going to places and feelings elicited, that's probably the saddest place on the planet Earth. One of. Like, just to go there and that feeling. Because I know it's like getting kicked in the chest. It's like getting kicked in the chest. All of it leaves. All of the happiness, all of the, the emotions that you feel, it's gone. There you go.
Now I have a contender for that. And this one is one that we've mentioned many times because it's just one of those places that just...
Ooh, is this one of my favorites?
This is not a place where an outside force has caused this to happen that we know of. It's just a natural place on the planet where just it causes suffering. And we don't know why. And of course, this is Aokigahara Forest.
What am I?
We try to avoid talking about it most of the time during the show because it is such a... It would be different if it was historical, like all the stuff happened in the past. But this happens all of the time. Like right now, somebody is there, probably unfortunately doing this. And this is where I have to inject my little disclaimer that if you are having thoughts of ending your life or anything like that, remember that there are resources available to you. There are people to talk to.
Reach out.
Do that.
Reach out to us.
Just
reach out to us. Listen, this Uncanny Earth, the email right there in the ticker. Mm-hmm. If you weren't having suicidal thoughts, send us an email.
We care. We will try. We will do what we can to be there for you.
Yeah, we'll do what we can.
Even if we don't know exactly how to help, because we're not trained professionals. If nothing else, we will be there to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Facts.
Now, Aokigahara Forest, which translates roughly to Blue Tree Meadow, also known as the Sea of Trees, is a forest on the northwestern flank of Mount Fuji on the island of Honshu in Japan. And it's on 30 square kilometers of hardened lava laid down by the last major eruption of Mount Fuji. Now, I wonder almost, considering about things that come up from within the earth and considering holes down to hell and etc., all these different things considered, if perhaps that has something to do with the energy there. Maybe it's some chthonic feeling, maybe some underworld something. But it has caves. It's a popular destination for tourists and school trips. Parts of it are very dense. The porous lava rock absorbs sound, which contributes to a sense of solitude that some visitors attribute to the forest itself. Now, why is that important? Because locally, it's known as the suicide forest. and it has a reputation as one of the world's most used suicide sites. People go there specifically with no other reason but to end their life.
They
and
specific. Oh,
to
sorry.
hang from the trees. And it's been known about that since at least the 1960s. Now, who knows? It might have been before that. We don't know for sure. But that's when the first times that they wrote reports about it that, okay, this is happening. It has a historical reputation as a home to yurei, which are ghosts. And I hope I said that well because I don't know Japanese. You guys do. I don't. But it's so common for this to happen there that there are signs at the head of multiple trails that urge suicidal visitors to think of your families and contact a suicide prevention association. And to give you some context in how prevalent this is, in 2003, 105 bodies were found in the forest. The previous record had been 78 in 2002. In 2010, police confirmed 54 suicides out of more than 200 attempts. Mm-hmm. Not everybody who's gone there has succeeded. And as of 2011, the most common means of suicide in the region were hanging or drug overdose. The local officials have stopped publicizing those numbers in an attempt to decrease the association with suicide because they hope maybe if people don't assume that that's where you should go, that maybe you won't go. It's that bad. And this is the most tricky place on my list here. Because this isn't a place where somebody sacrificed a bunch of lives. This isn't a place where a genocide happened. This is not a place where events occurred that caused it to be maybe haunted or, different paranormal stuff. It is a region where naturally people
From
go
day one.
to and they seek to harm themselves. Does that mean, is it something about the place? You have to put it in context, too, because Mount Fuji is where ancient Japan believed their gods came from. Yeah. They believed their gods came down to Mount Fuji and gave rise to their civilization. So Mount Fuji is a holy mountain, and this is on the slopes of Mount Fuji. So is it an attempt, perhaps not in an evil sense or a demonic sense, but if we want to go on to the afterlife that we deserve and meet our gods, maybe we should go here? Or is it some residual energy of that's a side effect of ancient visitors that arrive there? It's hard to say, and it's really disheartening because, again, you can't point to a cause and say this is why people do this.
I can.
So, well, Stephen, you're up next. Do you think this is an evil place because of that? Do you think it's demonic or evil spirits or what?
It's a bit complicated, but I think it's deeply ingrained within their culture and the way that they treat their individuals. I think that you made a very good point by mentioning that it's, closely associated with their gods, and I think that's part of it. And the other part, the main part, is I think they just treat people so terribly at their jobs and at school and just generally in public. They're just so cruel to each other that they get to the point where they don't want to, they don't want to go through with it anymore. They don't want to deal with it anymore. And like you said, like you suggested, they feel, well, if this is how life is going to be, then what's the point? I don't want to deal with it anymore. And if I'm going to end it, then what better place to end it than right here where I'm most likely to be cherished by the gods?
And to add to your point, a common fact is that the suicide rate is said to increase during March, which is the end of the fiscal year in Japan.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
You can trace the rates with certain things in society.
And Japan does have a very rigid, it's an honor culture at certain levels still, despite the fact. They fell off a little bit of that after World War II and after, demilitarization and things like that, but it's still kind of ingrained in part of the culture that
Yeah, like if
you
someone gets an
fail,
F, then they feel like they don't deserve to live.
yeah, unfortunately. But that's all good points. Robert, what do you think? Is it an evil place or is it just circumstance?
First of all, I want to say I'm proud of you too. You bring tears to my eyes because I've been telling you from day one that it is an honor based society. And that is why these things happen. If we get an F on our test, we probably get grounded. We might get
Yeah.
in some trouble.
An
But
extra line to make it an A and I try to cheat.
right. Oh, you could do that too. So it looks like a box A. That's
Yeah.
that's an old classic. And if you're feeling real fancy, you can just add the plus like a real, but it's because of that. It's because that they look at it like you got to give 60 to 80 hours of your day to your company. They're a very much honor driven, homogenous society. There's no room for, you know, messes.
Failure.
There's no room for turns and twists. Straight. So when you disappoint, you think, oh man, my life. But if we hearken back to the Edo period or the samurai period of those times, we have to remember that if you insulted the shogun, you had to commit harakiri or seppuku, and you had to. And then you got your head cut off by your buddy if you couldn't do it all the way up. If you could,
without screaming.
It was seen as as an honor. Like right there should tell you basic human thought should say no. Like, us who most of us are from, European regions, when when the Lord got a little too much for his britches, we just kicked in his door and took him out. And if we offended him, if we offended him, good. We don't care if we offended you.
France set things on fire like every time they don't like anything. The gas prices go up, set things on fire.
Set things on fire. Set things on fire. Yes. So like Europe, they're built a little different, but because it's so ingrained in who they are as people, and then they've modeled society around it. Like, oh man, it just. But to get back to your point, I don't think it's evil. I think it's just sad. I think that, Auschwitz and them might be a little more sinister because of what happened, but these are people willingly giving their lives up because of something. When you have to have signs that say, and I've seen these signs you're talking about, that say, you think of your family? We don't have that here for anything.
No.
So
maybe we just don't care as much
on the rest of the planet. Even other places, there is no singular location on the rest of planet Earth that has this.
Yes,
except for there.
Yeah, that's the only place that has it, because most people don't do this. Most people think, okay, I failed, I got to get back up, and I got to go back at it again. I got to get back up. But that in Japan, it's like I've dishonored. And that's it's a very much betrayal type of sin. Enough to where they'll give their lives up for it. It's sad to me because how much do you not value your own life? If my boss don't like me or my boss, gets rid of me, it'd suck. But I'll do my best not to go jump off of a bridge.
Technically in Japan, they're not allowed to fire you. So that's one reason why they do it sometimes, because they feel that there's no escape.
Oh, that would suck.
Yeah.
That would suck.
And if you try to quit your job willingly, you get blacklisted as in the whole entire country, and no one wants to hire you. So they kind of trap you into terrible positions.
The weird thing that I don't understand, and I would love to see why nobody has just straight up said, you know what, everything else, and just gone in and started swinging.
Because of their culture. Their culture is all about the older people deserve more respect.
But there's always one. And we haven't seen it from Japan at all. And it surprises me. Because at some point, somebody has to get fed up to the point of like,
I've had enough.
Yes, like
Yep.
Michael Douglas in Falling Down.
I was just
Very
about to say
Postal.
that. I just
Yeah.
want some breakfast.
I just
I
want
just
some
want some
breakfast.
breakfast.
Just want some breakfast. That's and now you've pushed a man too far. But I've
Yep.
yet to see it in Japan. So I'll be interested because I think that day will come. I think as long as you're like letting outside stuff into the country, you're homogenous now, but I
Whether you
still
like
think
it or
at
not.
some point somebody's gonna be like, there's no other country in the world where this is happening because of how we are treated, because of
Yeah.
our past. And I think at some point somebody has to buck the system and say, listen, boss, either you knock it off or we can meet in the parking lot as soon as you get off.
And I mean, not to promote anything, but they
Don't
don't
do that though.
have
Don't be every boss.
no, they don't have an active military in Japan.
This Uncanny Earth is not liable for any bosses that are beaten up in Japan. Just
Exactly.
disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
But if you do, good for you. Good for you. Because, but to once again get back to it, I think it's just a really sad place. Like I think it's just a very sad, sad place. Because I watched documentaries about it. Like you can get lost, you can go up, turn around, and the forest all looks the same.
Yeah.
So you don't know where you come from. So they recommend you bring trail markers and things like that to let you know where you're going. Don't go off of the trail. They tell you don't go off of the trail.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's a big space. It's not a small
It's huge.
forest. It's
yeah.
a massive area, and the trees are all the exact same kind of tree.
Yep.
Like here in the United States, you might see, oh, we've got maple and birch and this and that, and you can kind of be like, okay, well, if I know my trees, I can see where I've been and where I'm going. Everything there, it's one type of vegetation.
Yes.
It's just like the society. It's a homogeneous forest.
Yeah.
Just like the society, and everything
Ah.
looks the same.
Hadn't heard about
Very
that.
little undergrowth because it's just that's the region that it is.
Yes.
So there's different parts to it, but
it's just sad. That's all. That's it. It's just a really sad place.
um,
Oh, and F. Logan Paul and his brother.
yeah,
Agreed.
yeah.
Yeah,
I have
that's-
zero respect for you too.
That's why I
So,
wanted him to get beat up by Mike Tyson, but
I listen. If y'all ever say this, I
Yeah.
don't have any respect for you. You
Yeah.
don't do that. You don't do that.
you don't deserve to be called human beings.
Anyways, we won't say any more, but just know that's our stance. We are standing on that. We're, as the kids say, we are standing on business.
I'll leave it.
So that's did I get to you, Steven? Did you
Yeah.
did you get a spot? Okay.
Yeah, I
good.
was
wanted
first.
to make sure I got everything.
You were first because you were hyped up about Japan.
Yeah.
You were
So
like, yeah,
that's-
Japan. I'm kidding. I love you.
So to conclude here, is it possible at all that there are places on the planet that could be described as evil in a sense that they're demonically infested? I don't know for sure. I'm always a bit skeptical about this kind of thing. I think there are many places, as we've discovered, where we can create wounds on the earth, where we have done something that's just absolutely just awful and terrible to each other. And I haven't even covered half of them. There's a lot of places on the planet. When we talk about Pol Pot, the dictator who murdered so many people in Cambodia, we mentioned briefly Nanking, the terrible things that happened there, and the destruction of the Native American tribes systematically. There's so many terrible things we have done to each other on the planet that
As
could
humans.
create zones
Yes.
of just despair and anger and hatred. And is this a case of inviting something else in? I don't know about that so much. I think our worst enemy is always going to be ourselves.
Yep.
And I feel like if there exists an evil demonic entity out there that seeks our destruction, I think we're just making it easier and easier to bring him in and say, here we go. We served it up on a plate for you.
Yep.
And until that changes, we're going to find more of these places crop up that just feel like they're not right. Are they truly evil? I can't say that, but they're not going to be right, and we're not going to want to live there. So that's all I have for you this evening. It was a tough episode. This ending bit was it was a lot. So if anybody is feeling like you need somebody to talk to, remember there are people that you can talk to. You can talk to us, or if you can talk to somebody anonymous. I don't have phone numbers directly right here to post for you, but they are there for you. Okay? So do that. Don't do the opposite.
Yeah, please don't do the opposite. 988 is the suicide crisis hotline. Just 988.
And so long as you have an internet connection, you have a friend out there somewhere.
Yes.
Yep, that
so
is
don't
true.
do it. Don't do it.
True.
Don't do it.
So I want to thank my colleagues for their excellent commentary on this episode. We've got a great episode tonight. It was a deep one. It was a hard one. It was a lot more difficult than it could have been from the beginning. Next week, we have our final episode of the season. The last episode of the season, hosted by none other than Mr. Robert Solomon over here. What's it gonna be?
So we're gonna do the exact opposite. And we're gonna be talking about some sacred sites. Now, not just like Vatican, stuff like that, but places all over the globe. You're not gonna want to miss that one. Like you didn't want to miss this one. Like you didn't want to miss the one last week, or India and Pakistan, or meditation, or so many great topics that we are providing here with this Uncanny Media Network, something nobody else is doing. And we're giving you how it is and how we believe. So we're giving you some facts and we're giving you some beliefs. So do the thing. Why be boring? No, you know what? Let's let Steven say it. Steven, you can say it tonight. Steven, do the thing.
Why be boring when you can be uncanny?